Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, I'm be going over the rat talents, the state of rat, that kind of stuff. The last video I did was probably like being really sad of the last like rat video I did was probably being like really sad about the changes that happened to rat. Maybe I did the rat sets after that, but just in general, some of the changes that happened, I was really negative about. I still am for the most part. But I'm going to try to be more productive in this video and go through all the talents like I did at the beginning, and point out what I think's wrong with each thing or right with each thing. And yeah, and kind of give my opinion on it. We could get a new build tomorrow, perhaps, right? And then I would hope some of these things are addressed. And after the new stuff comes out, if new stuff does come out, can kind of talk about, okay, this was addressed, this wasn't addressed, this was made better, this was made worse, stuff like that. So wanted to get this out there so we have a frame of reference to where we are now and not from the beginning of the beta when I last did this. So here we see kind of a single target build that I think is kind of feels the best, at least gameplay wise, and kind of makes the most sense for me. Also does good damage as well. And I'll go over that a little bit, why I think that's the case. So as far as we will be going through each talent, but let's talk about this single target build real quick, because it's something that I've worked on a lot, and I kind of do like the way it feels and plays a little bit. So on the left side, it's pretty much all standard till you get to the bottom. Sanctified Wrath is just better than like Divine Purpose, so you can get all three capstones. So that's pretty much going to be mandatory. I have this capstone down here as well. All three capstones there. Increases your damage by a lot. Mad Paragon with the buff increases your damage by a lot. So that's very good. When you come over here, so what we'll see is, and kind of, it's a bit of a nitpicky thing too, but a lot of the talents on the ret tree are just kind of bad, right? They don't do enough or do anything, and they don't really play in with like the whole style that they're trying to make ret, right? So like one thing that they're really playing into in ret is this Mad Paragon by, extending our Avenging Wrath. So a lot of these abilities are not congruent with that, essentially, as far as getting the most out of extending, right? So things like Execution Sentence do not mesh super well with focusing 100% on extending your Avenging Wrath. Seal of Order does not go well with Execution Sentence, where you're just trying to fit in every spender you can into your Execution Sentence. But with Seal of Order, and in Dusk of Dawn, you want to make sure you don't go to 0 holy power ever. So like these things are just not things that work well together. And so you see like a lot of these talents at the bottom not being that good. Mostly this left side is not being that good, but you see the right side being extremely good for single target. Vanguard's Momentum goes with the extending of the Wrath. Obviously, Templar's Verdict or Final Verdict is very good. Templar's Vindication is a very strong single target conduit. In Shadowlands, that's very good. And then like Ashes to Ashes got a little bit nerfed, of course. It's still good, but it got nerfed because of the Art of War nerfs, which were terrible. And then I have Divine Toll and Divine Resonance just simply for more judgments to extend the Paragon. And then I just have the Empyrean Legacy simply because it's just a passive talent. And that's why like I don't have Exorcism, right? Everything I want to be doing is pressing Hammer of Wrath and Judgment whenever I can, not overcapping if I can avoid it, and then, using my spenders and everything. But I want to be extending it as much as possible. I've also gotten rid of my Ashes to Dust, which I had been playing. Ashes to Dust, again, with the nerf of Art of War, becomes a lot less useful, with Consecrated Blade as well. In my opinion, that takes away a lot of the fun of ret, unfortunately. That's why these Art of War nerfs were so bad. So I hope that they can address it in a different way. The Holy Power thing that they're worried about, hope they can address that in a different way, but we'll see, I guess. But it takes a lot of the fun out of the spec, which I was just having fun playing before this change. But with the lack of Art of War procs now, the Ashes to Dust is kind of dead in my opinion. Maybe not for AoE. And Ashes to Ashes is nerfed for sure. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on single target now, where I'm just taking Judgments and Hammer of Wrath and passive stuff. So that way I can keep pressing Judgment and Hammer of Wrath into spenders, right? Into a Final Verdict. So that's where I'm at on single target. So let's actually go through the talents now. So nothing's really changed. Let's start on the Paladin side real quick. Nothing's really changed at the top. Mostly, obviously, I'm still gonna be annoyed. Like the Divine Seed thing is so bad. Like it's just a meme at this point. The Crusader 2 charges, it is whatever. But like this Seasoned Warhorse 1 extra second, it's just such a bad talent. I mean, there's no other way around it. I know they probably have some formula of how much movement speed you can have for amount of time, but it doesn't matter. An instant ability, heroic leap, whatever. Anything instant is always better. It's really just Paladin and Priest, I'm pretty sure, that just have like the worst movement. I don't know. I just think it's a laughable thing. It shouldn't even be there. No one's really going to be using Seal of the Templar or anything either. It's just kind of like this wasted talent node. Pretty much pointless for most part, and for the most part too, like if depending on the fight and stuff, like you'll probably need Cavalier, but at the same time it's like, okay, well, if I need a blinding light or I need repentance for whatever reason, you probably never need repentance in a raid, but if you need blinding light for some reason, you'll have to take that and get rid of that. So obviously Divine Steed stuff's still a joke. It's still dumb. They don't seem like they're ever going to fix it or make it better, so it's just kind of crap. And that's for all Paladins. So I wish more Paladins were annoyed by it, not just Ret Paladins, and making more of a fuss about it, because it's just complete crap. With the next tier, it's just mostly standard again here. Obviously, they got rid of Spell Warding, which is terrible. Currently on the beta, at least for my character, I cannot unspec out of Improved Blessing and Protection, so I'm just stuck with it. They're like hard locked in. I can't take them off for some reason. So I'm stuck into that. Otherwise, you could play around a little bit with the points there, since you don't get spell warding anymore. You could play around with the points there. And then there's an issue with the left side and right side, in my opinion, and that's that these 3 talents are pretty much dead. The Divine Purpose might not be dead for AoE. We'll see that, how that goes. But we have Divine Purpose, Seal of Alacrity, and Obduracy, which is the speed and avoidance talent. So the issue is that we want to get Dusk to Dawn. To get Dusk to Dawn, we have to take this. So this doesn't this actually gives us damage, this Aspiration of Divinity, whereas this one doesn't. So when we're going down to Sanctified Wrath, even if we need haste or want haste, there's no reason to take this talent here. So I mean, there's just, you would have so you would have to take like Divine Purpose or whatever to get it, and in this case you wouldn't want to take that, which then creates this whole triangle of dead talents. So I don't know how you address this, but like every single build is going to look like this, I'm pretty sure, except for, like I said, maybe an AoE build will have Divine Purpose instead. It'll depend what you're doing, what kind of content you're doing, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's all going to look the same down here, so it's extremely bland and boring. Whereas I think some people might choose, like there might be cases where you choose the haste over mastery, especially if you have a ton of mastery, right? And you have low haste. Let's just say you have that scenario. If this talent did something, maybe you could take that talent instead of Hallowed Ground. Like, because you could say, well, just don't take Hallowed Ground. But Hallowed Ground does damage. It's 10% increased damage, and Consecration has a set bonus thing with it too. So it's like, you have to take this over 0 damage, so you take Hallowed Ground. So the fact that this does no damage makes the next talent dead, and then the Divine Purpose thing is, to be fair, that's mostly just dead because the capstones are just kind of better than it. So you have this dead triangle here. I think that needs to be addressed in some way. I don't know how. Obviously, I think I don't know how. I don't know how, honestly. Other than, because I don't even want to give the suggestion, because the suggestion is to make Dusk Dawn and Seal of Order not available to Ret. Like, if you want to take the Ret stuff, you can't get these things over here. But that would nerf a lot of damage to Ret, so that's why I don't really want to say that. But, like, yeah, it is definitely an issue. Obviously, I can't even play around with these because Spell Warding removal somehow locked this Blessing and Protection in. But yeah, obviously the Spell Warding removal for Ret is terrible as well, so hopefully they bring that back. So, on the Ret side, so Art of War being nerfed changes a lot. We already kind of talked about that with the single target stuff. Art of War changes a lot. It's, it's basically how our spec works is Art of War. And I talked about this a little bit, and I made a forum post about this too, so I don't know if everything I made in the forum post in the video, but essentially what they said they wanted to do is have Zeal and Blade of Wrath at these choice nodes because, you know, they're very important to the play. If you watch my video, I called Blade of Wrath, Zeal, and Ashes to Ashes like the triangle of Ret. Like that's how Ret plays right now, the way that it's built. And, you know, frankly, with the nerf to Art of War, that does nerf Ashes to Ashes, and it makes it kind of not have an identity. Now, kind of, in my opinion, the identity is just spamming Hammer of Wrath and Judgment as much as you can. Instead, like, I would say that's the identity. So the identity would be Paragon, Toll, and Vanguard's Momentum instead. But, like, that was the thing. So they moved Zeal down here. They hit it in a choice node instead of it being, like, its own thing. Instead, we have Empyrean Power up here for whatever reason. So now you just have to take Empyrean Power. I think that's terrible. I think that's a huge mistake. I think going away from this Trinity, this triangle that I talked about, was a huge mistake. I think nerfing Art of War is a huge mistake. I can't say that enough times. It's just flat bad. It's not good. You know, don't like it. Divine Protection, obviously, I got to actually use this in a raid fight. It is actually pretty useful to use, especially when there's lots of damage coming out from a lot of different places and stuff like that, since it just nerfs all, not nerfs, but it reduces all the damage taken from all the different sources instead of just having a shield pop and then everything hitting you for 100%. You have to remember it does last for 8 seconds. So, you know, if your shield pops immediately, then for 7 seconds you're getting hit for 100% damage. You know, the damage reduced during Divine Protection for that 7 seconds is actually quite significant. So this is working out nice. I'm glad to have it. Obviously, I wish the cooldown was less. I wish it could get down to a minute. So like with Unbreakable Spirit, for example, start Divine Protection at whatever. If you take Unbreakable Spirit, it gets us down to a minute. I think that's fine if they do that. But it is a good talent nonetheless. Obviously with the nerf Art of War procs, we also have nerf to Consecrated Blade. You don't get as many Consecrated Blade procs. You don't get as many procs for your Ashes to Dust. So in this case, I don't even have it selected. Again, this stuff just takes away from the fun of it, the way Ret played, and it just takes away from the fun of it. Like, it's not as fun to play anymore, and that's the biggest thing, right? We can spam buttons and maybe still do good damage, but it's just not fun to play anymore, at least for me. I'm not having fun doing it anymore. I do have Crusade picked right now over Might. I think this, again, could be based on content. Crusade's obviously just like a better talent overall, but depending on where your crit's at, maybe the Might could give you more value. It also could allow you to perhaps stack gear without crit and then take Might for the crit, and then maybe that would outpace Crusade in some way. But I do like that there is some selection there. Obviously, I'm enjoying Crusade right now. I have Crusade selected and all that. As far as down the bottom goes, so one thing I would definitely want to talk about was the execution sentence. So they made it so it's available to crit. I don't know if that's still working yet. I've only tried it a few times since that first day, and I know they haven't. I don't think they've done like any updates since then. So execution sentence is supposed to crit, but I don't think it still is. Maybe it is, and I've just been unlucky. But execution sentence is supposed to crit now, so they are trying to kind of lean you into it. But I'll tell you, execution sentence just does not feel good. I don't think it's going to be able to really be a thing without Ring and Clarity. You just don't get to fit enough into it to make it worth it, or to make this Executioner's Will worth it, or whatever, the extension. It just doesn't work. You don't have enough Holy Power now with the Art of War nerfs. You don't have enough procs. Like before, you could get lucky at least to maybe proc into a Blade or proc into a Wake of Ashes to get more Holy Power to keep extending it over and over again. The only way you can kind of even come close to extending it is perhaps, going down to 0 Holy Power, which then ruins your Dusk of Dawn. So it just doesn't fit very well. It doesn't work at all right now with the current state of what they're playing, even though they're making it crit now. I really hope they don't continue to try to force execution sentence while removing all the Holy Power fun out of the spec. It just doesn't make sense to do right now. It's like there's two people working on it or something, and they're on two different brain lengths or something. It just doesn't make sense at all. So execution sentence is just kind of dead and terrible. It feels absolutely awful to play. I saw some person suggest in a comment to try using Execution Sentence later on in the Crusade, after you have your haste built up. And that was something I always meant to try as well. That was like in my 3-minute rat video before they put Crusade to 2 minutes. But I have done that, and it does help to do that, by the way. Obviously, it probably seems pretty obvious. And it does help to do that, but it still feels just absolutely awful to have that. And, like, you can do an Execution Sentence with Divine Toll build, but at the end of the day, as far as it is right now, you could just do more damage by just doing this passive stuff. Like, you could just do more damage by having the Vanguard's Momentum and not even worried about it, because Vanguard's Momentum just increases your damage in general, and then also Vanguard's Momentum, you know, extends your Crusade or your Avenging Wrath. So that side's kind of dead. I think it's just going to kind of be, for the most part, the way it's built right now. You want the Judgments for sure. And the only reason you wouldn't take Vanguard's Momentum in AoE is because you have to take a bunch of single target crap to get to it. So I think it's going to kind of be like, okay, you take Divine Toll, Divine Resonance for single target, and you take, you know, Virtuous Command, Final Reckoning for multi-target, and then get rid of this Empyrean Legacy, for example, right? Or something like that. Or actually, you're getting rid of more points here over on this side, so you could just grab those if you wanted. And so it's like, I think it's pretty bland as far as that goes. It's like, this is the mandatory thing because it works for single target and multi-target, and it extends your Paragon, it extends your Avenging Wrath or Crusade. So you just kind of always take this for that reason. And then over here, you just either go single target or multi-target, and that's kind of it, right? And that's it. So it's kind of lame at the bottom, and that's going to happen when you have like 3 talents that are kind of dead, right? That's gonna be the case. Relentless Inquisitor, you know, this always has been a solid legendary in Shadowlands, but it just doesn't seem to be worth to take. Honestly, I don't know why. It should be in theory, but just having this extra haste for some reason just doesn't end up doing much overall for you. Maybe they could buff it up or something, the amount of haste that you get from it, to maybe increase the power level as far as tuning goes, and then that makes that talent better to take. But yeah, right now I just don't see a lot of variability with the spec. I don't see a lot of fun with the spec. And the number one thing I'd want to see is them be like, oh, okay, we did not mean to nerf the crap out of Art of War in general. We were wrong with the way we targeted the Holy Power. Instead, we're going to, you know, redesign Sanctification or Grace, whatever, and do something different from that perspective and allow you to generate Holy Power from, you know, what we said was going to be like a core thing, which was, you know, Blade of Wrath, Zeal, Ashes to Ashes. You, like, if you know these are the core things, then you know that the Art of War is also part of that, right? Art of War is the passive normally, and yes, it's a talent now, but Art of War is a passive that makes that facilitates that being important. It's like they knew Blade of Wrath and Zeal were important, but they didn't know why it was important, and they destroyed the why it was important. And then, you know, like when you do that, when you have less Art of War procs, you know, it destroys the why, and that's not good. So that's what I'd like to see change the most, honestly. If I'm being real, like, just getting rid of that change alone. I know a lot of people didn't like many of the changes that were made, but just reverting the Art of War change takes a lot of the doom away. It's not an Art of War change, it's a Blade of Wrath change, but it affects the amount of Art of Wars, so that's why I call it an Art of War change. Just reverting those changes puts a lot more variability back into it. It makes possibly an Execution Sentence build more possible because you have more Holy Power. You know, it makes, you know, Ashes to Dust a better talent. It re-strengthens your Ashes to Ashes ability, which is supposed to be kind of like a core ability here in the center. And, you know, it makes it a lot better. So that's the thing that we have to hope for and root for if you're still thinking about playing Red or want to play Red, or you're just always going to play Red, whatever. We need to get those changes gone because that was just terrible. So the change to Blade of Wrath that gives you less Art of War procs, that is what needs to be gone. I think that opens up a little bit of variability within the spec, a little bit of change, you know, allows more talents to be more meaningful, more fun to play, and it definitely makes the spec fun to play, the gameplay fun to play. Right now, with the way it is right now, like I said, for single target, this is pretty much the only build that I can really have fun with. Other than that, it feels terrible and clunky, I would say. This way, at least doesn't feel clunky. I don't feel like I'm starved for holy power. I'm just kind of pressing my buttons and doing damage very mechanically and a bit boring. But other than that, it feels clunky and not great. So I don't want it to be just like a completely passive build where you're just managing Hammer of Wraths and Judgments and that's it. But at the same time, I don't want them to make Execution's Will and Execution's Wrath mandatory while not addressing the core issues either. So the way it is right now, if the tuning was great, what I would say right now is the way it is right this very moment, if the tuning was great and we're a high damage class, I think people will be able to stomach it, but not necessarily have that much fun with it. And if they revert the Art of War changes, then I think that it could still be potentially fun to play. So that's where I'm at right now. Hoping for the best, prepared for the worst, and you got to hope that the tuning is good too, because at least like I said, with this build, you could stomach playing it. With this build, if the damage is good, if the damage is bad, or they start pushing Exorcism, or they start pushing Execution Sentence via tuning to, oh, these are better now. It's going to feel even more clunky and less fun and kind of miserable to play. So that's where I'm at now. That's it for this one. We'll see what hopefully the new build tomorrow will bring, assuming there is a new build tomorrow. And we will catch up with comparing and contrasting this video to, whatever happens tomorrow. So yeah, that's it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. Helps me out so much. Other than that, everybody, have a good one.